My friends, let's slow this entire storm down for a second. People think silence means the story is over. They think the lack of a text, the absence of a call, or the cold shoulder from the person who walked away means the chapter is closed. But silence isn't closure. Silence is just noise that hasn't been decoded yet. Humans confuse quiet with finality because they'd rather assume it's finished than sit with uncertainty. But the truth is simpler. Silence only means one thing. There are feelings present that neither side knows how to face yet. Listen, folks, when someone rejects you, you experience the emotional impact first. You take the hit in real time. You feel the loss immediately. You're the one who goes through the shock, the grief, the anger, the confusion. That entire emotional storm plays out inside you up front. But here's the part nobody ever talks about. The person who did the rejecting isn't ahead of you. They're behind you, emotionally behind you, psychologically behind you, spiritually behind you. While you're dealing with the damage right now, they're delaying that experience, postponing it, avoiding it like a bill they don't want to open. This is what I call emotional lag time. The mind protects the rejecter by pushing away the emotional truth for a while. They get numbness instead of impact, distraction instead of connection, ego instead of honesty. Think of a delayed echo in an empty canyon. When you shout, the sound doesn't return immediately. It takes time before it comes back to you. That's exactly what happens to them. They don't feel the loss when they leave. They feel it later, when life gets quiet, when distractions fade, when their replacement attention dries out, when the noise stops. That's when your absence hits them like a wave they didn't see coming. You took the blow early because you were the one who cared more in the moment. You were invested, you were emotionally awake. But them? They were running. They were avoiding. They were pretending they were fine. They were convincing themselves they won by walking away. But walking away doesn't erase a bond. It just postpones the consequences of losing it. My friends, you're ahead of them emotionally. You already paid the price. You already survived the impact. You already stood in the fire and refused to burn down. Them? They haven't even stepped into the fire yet. Their heartbreak hasn't started. Their heartbreak comes later. When your heart starts healing, theirs starts breaking. When your mind gains clarity, theirs gets confused. When your peace returns, their anxiety rises. When you stop checking your phone, they start checking theirs. This is how the cycle works. Not because karma is dramatic, but because the human mind can only avoid truth temporarily. Folks, let me tell you something brutally honest. The person who rejected you hasn't gotten over you. They haven't moved on. They haven't deleted the emotional imprint you left. They just haven't faced it yet. But they will, and when they do, it won't be soft. It won't be pretty. It won't be controlled. It will hit them loud, sudden, and undeniable, because what you're feeling today is just the beginning of what they'll feel later. Your heartbreak happened early. Theirs happens delayed. Theirs happens silently at first, then violently all at once. So, my friends, this is where you breathe. This is where you stop reacting and start reclaiming. You don't need to panic. You don't need to chase. You don't need to crumble. You stay calm because calm people see clearly. You stay grounded because grounded people don't get dragged back into old chaos. And you stay stoic because that's what gives you the advantage they don't even know you have yet. You're not falling behind, folks. You're not losing anything. You're actually stepping into the part of the story where you rise quietly while they fall loudly. You're the one who faced the truth early. You're the one who processed the pain up front. You're the one who already walked through the fire. That means you hold the lead, not them. And I want you to lock this in. Don't just nod. Don't just think it. Say it. claim it, stamp it into your identity. I'm ahead emotionally. That's your reminder that you've already survived what they haven't even begun to feel yet. Write that line in the comments right now. Seriously, not for me, for you. When you type something out, you anchor it, you make it real, you turn it from a thought into a decision, and you deserve to feel the power of that decision. So go drop it below. I'm ahead emotionally. Let that be your stamp of strength today. And while you're here, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. More clarity is coming, more peace is coming, and more of your strength is about to wake up. Number 1, the echo mind phenomenon. My friends, this is where most people get fooled by the surface and miss the truth sitting underneath. You think someone didn't care because they didn't fall apart the moment they walked away. You think their calm meant certainty, their silence meant peace, and their coldness meant closure. But human psychology isn't instant coffee. People don't feel big emotions right when they happen. They feel them when those emotions finally catch up. And that delayed collision is what I call the echo mind. It's the part of the human psyche that responds late, not because the feelings weren't there, but because they weren't ready to face them. Some people don't process loss like you do. When you care deeply, your heart reacts immediately. When the connection snaps, you feel the break right away. But there are people who function differently. Avoidant hearts don't break in real time. Pride-driven minds don't allow themselves to feel instantly. Dismissive personalities use emotional distance the same way a shield is used in battle. They block the first hit, so the impact hits them later. Imagine dropping a stone into a canyon. There's a moment of silence, then the echo comes back louder than the original drop. That's exactly what happens inside their mind. The first moment of separation feels like nothing. But the echo arrives when life is quiet, when distractions fade, when replacements fail, when the mask slips. Why do they process things late? It's not because they're stronger or smarter or colder. It's because their emotional system is built backwards. They avoid what hurts. They walk away so they don't have to confront themselves. They distract so they don't have to feel. They force numbness because feeling anything too soon scares them. Their brain does something Carl Jung talked about often. The psyche hides what the person cannot face. It buries it temporarily. It locks it away until the conscious mind is safe enough to deal with truth. So they don't break when you think they should. They break later when they've run out of distance to hide behind. And that's the part that confuses you. You're sitting here thinking, how did they walk away so easily? How did they let me go without hesitation? How did they not feel what I felt? But the truth is, they didn't escape anything. They just postponed it. Emotional pain doesn't disappear because someone resists it. Pain waits. It waits patiently. It waits quietly. It waits until there are no more distractions left for them to use as armor. Then it shows up in full force, uninvited, unstoppable, undeniable. Let me give you a metaphor that matches reality more than you think. Picture someone throwing a heavy box into a closet and slamming the door shut. They walk away acting like the problem is handled, but the mess is still in that closet. Eventually, the door cracks open, the box falls out, and everything spills across the floor. That's exactly how echo mind works. They shoved the truth of losing you into the mental closet, slammed it shut, and walked off thinking they were unaffected. But life has a way of pulling that door open eventually, and when it does, all the emotions they thought they dodged fall out at once. This is why avoidant, dismissive, or pride-driven people seem so calm at first. Their brain is in denial mode. They tell themselves lies like, "I'll find better, I don't need them, I'm fine, it didn't matter." But those aren't beliefs. Those are self-protective illusions. And illusions always break, especially when the person who created them isn't emotionally mature enough to maintain them. So what triggers the echo? It usually happens at very ordinary moments, when they're alone in their room, when their new fling stops feeling exciting, when they scroll to the bottom of their camera roll and your face shows up, when they hear a song you once sent, when they walk by a spot you stood together, when they laugh and instinctively turn to share it with someone, only to remember it used to be you. Their mind only lets the memories surface when it believes the emotional threat is gone. Emotional safety doesn't mean happiness. It means they finally feel strong enough to admit what they lost. That's when the replay begins. And that replay isn't soft. It's sharp. It's haunting. It's involuntary. The echo mind plays back your presence, your support, your kindness, your energy, your impact. And the more they replay you, the more the truth breaks their illusion. Maybe you're wondering, but why does it take so long? Why don't they feel it when I feel it? Because your heart was open. Theirs wasn't. Your emotions were awake. Theirs were hiding. You walked into the truth. They ran from it. And the universe never lets someone outrun what they owe emotionally. What they refuse to feel then will be what they're forced to feel later. And here's the part most people never understand. The echo mind is the biggest reason they come back right when you're finally healing. You think it's coincidence that they return when you're moving on? No, it's timing. Echo mind, timing. You processed your pain early. You faced the storm the day it hit. You tore down the illusion quickly. You rebuilt slowly. And by the time you're finally stable again, that's when their echo mind finally crashes in and makes them realize what they lost. This is why avoidant people always return after you detach. This is why dismissive people reach out after months of silence. This is why exes reappear exactly when you stop caring. Your cycle ends just as theirs begins. My friends, you're not forgotten, you're delayed, you're not unloved, you're unprocessed, you're not dismissed, you're postponed. Echo mind is real, and it's the reason the story isn't over. So hold your ground, stay steady, stay centered, keep walking forward while their echo walks back toward you. And write this in the comments to stamp it into your identity. My value returns in their echo. Number 2, the emotional imprint loop. My friends, this is where human psychology gets messy in a way most people never see coming. Everyone thinks moving on is a straight line, like someone can simply walk away, flip a switch, and delete everything you meant to them. But the mind doesn't work like a phone you can reset. The mind stores emotional experiences like footprints in wet cement, and once they harden, those prints don't fade. They loop, they replay, they resurface when life gets quiet. This is what I call the emotional imprint loop, or EIL. It's the cycle that drags someone right back into the memory of you long after they claimed they were done. EIL starts when the noise fades. When the world gets quiet, when their routine slows down, that's when the mind instinctively returns to the most emotionally charged experiences it has stored. Strong emotional bonds leave marks the way fire leaves smoke on walls. Even if the flames are gone, the residue stays, and the moment they sit still, even for a second, their brain naturally loops back to you, because that's where the strongest imprint lies. The loop has 3 phases, and each phase exposes the truth they tried so hard to hide. The first phase is suppression. This is where they pretend everything is fine. You know the act. shoulders back, ego inflated, fake confidence dripping off them like cheap perfume. They convince themselves they're unaffected. They say things like, "I needed this, I'm better off," or "I'm not thinking about them." But that's not clarity, that's denial dressed up as strength. They suppress because facing the truth early would shatter the image they're trying to project. Then comes the second phase, replacement attempts. This is where they try to patch the emotional hole with quick dopamine hits, more scrolling, more talking to new people, more distractions, more nightlife, more noise. Humans chase stimulation when they're trying to avoid stillness. Stillness is dangerous for them because stillness brings honesty. So they drown themselves in temporary highs. They try to recreate the connection you gave them without doing the emotional work that made it real. But the thing about replacements is this: they only work until the novelty fades. Eventually, the excitement dies. The distractions lose flavor, the new people feel shallow, and the void returns, even bigger than before. And that's when the third phase hits, the loop return. This is where their mind drags them back to you, whether they want it or not. It's the moment the imprint you left comes back, like a song they can't escape. The brain replays the late-night talks, the laughs, the comfort, the stability, the emotional safety you created, the way your presence made them feel understood without them having to explain. It replays everything they took for granted. And this replay doesn't happen softly. It's sharp, it's vivid, it's involuntary. They don't choose to remember you. Their mind forces them to. You become the baseline emotional blueprint they compare everyone to. And that's not poetic, that's psychological. The first connection that feels deep becomes the standard the mind uses to measure every other bond. If someone new doesn't match your emotional intelligence, your patience, your humor, your energy, your presence, they feel the difference immediately. It shows up in small ways at first. They realize the new person doesn't calm them the way you did, doesn't challenge them the way you did, doesn't understand them in the silent moments the way you did. Then it grows. They start thinking, why doesn't this feel the same? Why does something feel missing? Why does this person not hit the same? Those questions are the loop tightening around them. EIL is why they replay you even when they don't want to. It's why you appear in their mind at random times. It's why certain songs suddenly hit them. It's why certain nights feel heavier. It's why they scroll your old messages, even when pride tells them not to. The emotional blueprint you created didn't vanish when they walked away. They just stepped into a world that can't replace you. And that's the part you need to understand, my friends. You were not a chapter. You were a template. You weren't something they experienced. You were something their mind molded itself around. And people don't escape their own imprint. They return to it, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but always inevitably. Type this in the comments to anchor it into your identity. I am their emotional blueprint. Number 3, why their rejection wasn't about you. My friends, this part is where everything finally clicks into place, because you've been sitting there wondering what you did wrong, why you weren't enough, why they pushed you away, why they chose distance over connection. And the truth is so much simpler and so much more freeing than anything you've been telling yourself. Their rejection was never about your worth. It was about their wounds, their fear, their unresolved chaos. You didn't break the connection. You triggered something inside them that they weren't equipped to face. There's a psychological angle I want you to understand clearly, something I call mismatch triggering. This happens when someone meets a person who doesn't match their level of emotional maturity, self-awareness, or internal stability. You weren't a threat to them. The connection was. You woke up things in them that had been sleeping for years. You stirred thoughts, emotions, and doubts they'd been avoiding their entire life. When someone has spent years hiding from themselves, meeting someone who makes them confront those hidden parts feels like danger, not love. Think about it. When you showed up, you didn't just enter their life. You exposed parts of them they weren't ready to see. You activated a level of self-reflection they had no training for. You made them feel seen in a way that stripped away the facade they were comfortable hiding behind. And not everyone is built for that level of vulnerability. Some people aren't used to being understood. Some aren't used to being cared for. Some aren't used to someone noticing the small cracks in their armor. And when they feel that level of exposure, they panic. Rejection is often a panic response, not a clarity response. You weren't hard to love, you were hard to hide from, and that difference matters more than you think. You awakened emotional layers inside them that they didn't have the tools to navigate. You woke up their insecurities, their inner child, their buried guilt, their unresolved trauma, their fear of intimacy, their fear of losing control. You touched parts of them that they didn't even know how to talk about. Most people don't reject you because you're wrong for them. They reject you because you reveal them to themselves. You show them who they are, beneath the ego, beneath the performance, beneath the false confidence. That level of truth is uncomfortable. Truth makes unhealed people run. There's a term I want to give you: identity discomfort reaction. This is the instinctive response people have when someone threatens the version of themselves they've been clinging to. They reject the person who exposes their unhealed identity. It's easier for them to walk away from you than to face themselves, because facing you means facing their flaws, their fears, their patterns, their emotional immaturity. Choosing distance gives them the illusion of control. Choosing you requires growth, vulnerability, and accountability, things they weren't ready to handle. It wasn't your behavior that scared them. It was the mirror you held up, a mirror that showed them their inconsistency, their indecision, their emotional laziness, their avoidance, their fear of loving or being loved properly. You were the emotional wake-up call they didn't ask for, and instead of rising to the level of connection you offered, they took the easier path: escape. But here's the part that matters most, my friends. When someone rejects you because you expose their unhealed identity, the rejection never lasts. Because you weren't rejected as a person, you were rejected as a reminder. And reminders don't go away. They follow people, they haunt them, they linger at the back of their mind, they come back in quiet moments, and eventually the same truth they ran from becomes the truth they can't ignore anymore. So let this sink in. Their rejection wasn't a measurement of your value, it was a measurement of their capacity. You didn't fall short. They did. You weren't too much. They were too little. You weren't unlovable. They were unprepared. And the day will come when they realize the connection they abandoned was the one thing in their life that actually had the power to pull them into a better version of themselves. Write this in the comments to anchor it deep. I triggered their healing, not their rejection. Number 4. Their temporary replacement cycle. Explained. My friends, here's where we expose one of the biggest illusions people fall for after a breakup or rejection. You see them out there acting like they're living their best life. They're scrolling non-stop, Netflix running in the background, flirting with strangers, posting more stories than usual, chasing attention like it's oxygen, and you sit there thinking, wow, they moved on fast. But nothing could be further from the truth. What you're witnessing isn't healing. It's the temporary replacement cycle, or TRC. And trust me, TRC isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of emotional debt. It's the behavior of someone trying to outrun a bill they know they'll eventually have to pay. and that bill is you. TRC starts when they feel the first drop of emptiness after the separation. Instead of sitting with it, instead of reflecting, instead of processing, they jump straight into stimulation. That's phase 1, the stimulation high. This is when they chase anything that numbs. They flirt harder. They stay up late for no reason. They swipe endlessly. They jump into conversations with people who mean nothing. They try new hobbies they don't actually care about. They fill their time with sound, screens, and strangers. They're basically flooding their brain with dopamine to drown out the quiet, because quiet is dangerous for them. Quiet exposes truth. And they aren't built for truth yet. But this high never lasts. It burns fast, like a sparkler that looks bright at first, but fizzles out the moment you need real light. That's when they slip into phase 2, emotional fatigue. This is where exhaustion hits. They get tired of pretending, tired of distractions, tired of forcing fun. They start noticing that even with all the noise, something still feels hollow. The energy they chased earlier now feels heavy. The conversations feel empty. The attention they sought feels cheap. And the dopamine rush that once numbed them now barely scratches the surface. When that fatigue sets in, something interesting happens. The mind starts wandering. This leads to phase 3, silent comparison. This is where they compare everyone they meet to you without even realizing it. They compare the way you listened, the way you cared, the way you understood their moods, the way you paid attention to details, the way you gave them stability without asking for it. New people don't make them feel that. Temporary attention doesn't recreate that. Light-hearted flirtation doesn't replace depth. And they hate this comparison because it proves something their pride doesn't want to admit. The connection they had with you was real. This comparison doesn't always show up loudly. Sometimes it hits them in small moments. They laugh at something and think they would have loved that joke. They see a restaurant and remember you liked it. They talk to someone new and realize the conversation feels forced. They look at their phone and miss the comfort your messages used to bring. Silent comparison is the mind's way of saying, you didn't replace anything, you just delayed the truth. And then comes phase 4, the reality crash. This one hits like a brick wall. The reality crash is when everything they tried to avoid comes crashing down at once. They run out of distractions, they run out of energy, they run out of denial. The mask falls off, the stimulation dries up, and the truth stands in front of them, unfiltered. The truth that what they lost mattered. The truth that the replacement attempts were temporary bandages, not solutions. The truth that you weren't just another person, they were attached to you in ways they didn't understand until now. This is the moment they realize nothing they chased filled the same emotional space you filled. And that's when the loop brings them right back to you, not because they suddenly grew wiser, but because they finally stopped running long enough to feel the full weight of what they lost. The TRC doesn't end with them finding someone better. It ends with them revisiting the one they underestimated. It ends with regrets forming quietly. It ends with them remembering you more clearly, more honestly, more painfully. People who run from their emotions always circle back to the person they felt the most with. And that, my friends, guarantees one thing. You will be revisited. When the cycle collapses, they always return to the last genuine connection they touched. Write this in the comments to anchor it deeply. They can't outrun what we had. Number 5, the psychological boomerang effect. My friends, this part of the journey reveals something most people don't even realize they're doing. Humans have a strange habit of pushing away the very person they secretly believe will still be there in the end. It's irrational, it's unconscious, but it's real. And when it happens, it creates a psychological pattern I call the psychological boomerang effect, or PBE. This isn't just a romantic idea. It's a cognitive pattern rooted in familiarity, emotional safety, and hidden dependency. They push you away not because they want you gone, but because some part of them assumes you'll orbit back, no matter how far they throw you. This is the wild part, folks. When someone assumes you'll always be available, they start treating you like a boomerang. They throw you out of their life with full confidence you'll curve back eventually. They assume your patience. They assume your loyalty. They assume your softness. They assume your emotional consistency. They reject you with the safety net of believing the connection won't truly break. They take your presence for granted because they've already conditioned themselves to believe you will return. But here's the twist. That same assumption is the very rope that drags them back to you later, whether they want it or not. The mind has a habit of returning to what it trusts, and even if they don't admit it, they trusted you emotionally more than they trusted themselves. Familiar emotional safe zones always resurface when everything else falls apart. When new connections start feeling shallow, when conversations don't flow the same, when someone else doesn't read them the way you did, their mind instinctively retraces its steps back to the place it last felt understood. Not comforted artificially, understood genuinely. And you were that place. New people can entertain them. New people can distract them. New people can excite them. But new people rarely make them feel understood. And when that deficiency shows up, something inside them starts tugging, pulling them mentally right back to you, even if they've spent months pretending they're over it. This is the core of the psychological boomerang effect, rejecting someone you subconsciously believe you'll eventually return to. Let's go deeper. They return because they don't trust their new emotional environments. They return because the new people in their life don't feel like home. They return because their own mind sabotages their attempt to move on. And the reason this happens is something I call comfort memory activation. These are memories that activate automatically whenever life tests them. Whenever they face stress, disappointment, loneliness, emotional confusion, your face, your presence, your energy resurfaces in their internal world. They don't choose this. The mind does it for them. The brain ties emotional comfort to specific people. Once someone becomes a comfort memory, every hardship becomes a trigger for that memory. They get overwhelmed. They remember how calm you made things. They feel misunderstood. They remember how easy conversations with you were. They feel lonely. They remember how your presence filled silence without making it awkward. They feel judged. They remember how you welcomed their flaws without making them feel small. Comfort memory activation is the reflexive pull toward the last person who made them feel safe emotionally. And safety is the currency of attachment. People walk away from happiness, but they always return to safety. This is why, even after pushing you away, ignoring you, rejecting you, acting cold, pretending they're fine, jumping into new conversations, or convincing themselves they've evolved beyond you, the pull still finds them. That subconscious expectation that you'll be there eventually becomes the very reason they end up craving you in the end. They assumed your presence, and that assumption imprint doesn't fade. It loops, it resurfaces, it guides them back. What you gave them wasn't attention, it was emotional safety, And emotional safety is rare. It's irreplaceable. It's unforgettable. You were their anchor in a world full of temporary thrills. And even if they tried to toss that anchor away, gravity has a funny way of reminding people where they last felt grounded. You weren't the person they wanted to lose. You were the person they assumed they could come back to later. And that assumption is why the boomerang always returns to the hand that threw it. Write this in the comments to root it in your mind. I was their safe place. Number 6. The attraction principle of silent gravity. My friends, this is where your power gets quiet, steady, and undeniable. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to message them. You don't need to prove anything. In fact, the more noise you make, the less they hear you. But the moment you go still, the moment you stop trying, the moment your energy stops reaching for them, something shifts inside their mind. A new force begins pulling at them in ways they can't explain. That force is what I call silent gravity. It's the attraction that forms not from effort, but from absence, not from convincing, but from uncertainty. And humans, my friends, hate uncertainty more than heartbreak itself. Silent gravity works because when you stop doing, their mind starts doing. The human mind is allergic to loose ends, unanswered questions, and situations that feel unfinished. When someone pushes you away, they expect you to chase. They expect you to argue. They expect you to fight. But when you do nothing, absolutely nothing, it messes with their entire emotional blueprint. They don't know where you stand. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you've moved on or if you finally realized your worth. And that uncertainty becomes a gravitational pull that grows stronger by the day. Silence is psychologically louder than any message you could send. Silence forces the other person to fill in the blanks. And the mind is cruel when it's left alone with those blanks. It starts imagining, replaying, regretting, questioning. It digs through old memories like files in a drawer. It revisits moments it ignored. It begins wondering whether losing you was a mistake. Silence does what shouting never could. It makes them hear themselves. Here's the truth most people never learn. The less you do, the more they feel. When you pull away, their mind moves toward you. When you go quiet, their thoughts get louder. When you stop reaching out, their ego collapses into uncertainty. They start checking their phone more often. They start hovering over your name. They start wondering why you're not reacting the way they predicted. They expected a pattern, but you broke it. And when you break a pattern, you break the illusion of control they thought they had. Silent gravity is basically emotional physics. Your withdrawal creates space, and that space is where their emotions expand. Without your messages, your presence, your reassurance, their internal world gets confronted by something they've been avoiding the entire time, the reality of losing you. And the human mind hates that kind of realization. It fights it. It questions it. It tries to push it away. But the more they resist, the stronger the pull becomes. This is where another concept kicks in, something I call unresolved emotional space. This is the leftover emotional energy between two people that never got closure. It's the unanswered question, the unfinished conversation, the feelings that never got expressed, the goodbye that wasn't complete. Their brain hates this space. It isn't built for emotional to be continued. When a bond breaks without proper closure, the mind becomes restless. It reopens the connection mentally, trying to figure out what went wrong. And in that restless searching, the mind always goes back to the last person it left unfinished with, you. Unresolved emotional space is like an open tab in their brain that they can't close. Every time they try to focus on something new, that tab sits there glowing. Every new person they meet gets compared to you without them realizing it. Every moment of stillness brings them back to what didn't get resolved, and this unresolved energy becomes silent gravity's strongest fuel. It turns your absence into a magnet. It makes your quiet presence louder than their distractions, and the deeper their restlessness grows, the more they feel the pull toward you. You weren't forgotten. You became a question mark, and question marks haunt people far longer than periods ever do. So keep your calm, keep your distance, keep your energy to yourself. Silent gravity isn't passive, it's strategic. It's you stepping back so their mind steps forward, and when that happens, they feel the truth they tried to outrun. Write this in the comments to claim it fully. My silence pulls stronger than their pride. Number 7. The contrast collapse moment. My friends, this is the moment they never see coming, the moment they think they're moving forward, only to walk straight into a wall they built with their own hands. The moment when every distraction, every replacement, every new chapter they bragged about collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. I call this the contrast collapse. It's the psychological crash where everything they chased suddenly looks dull compared to what they walked away from. And, trust me, no matter how strong they pretend to be, nobody escapes this moment. Contrast. Collapse happens when the novelty wears off. At first, everything feels exciting for them. New people feel interesting. New conversations feel refreshing. New attention feels validating. They feel a spark, but they don't realize it's the cheap spark of novelty, not the deep warmth of connection. Novelty is addictive, but it dies fast. And when it dies, they're left with a person who doesn't understand their silence, their moods, their fears, their complexities. They're left with someone who doesn't read between the lines like you did, someone who doesn't make them feel known. Novelty wears off like perfume fading in a room. You think it's strong, then one breeze removes all the illusion. And when that happens, they face emotional emptiness. The temporary highs stop hitting. The new attention stops feeling special. The excitement starts to look forced. You can fill your life with noise, but noise doesn't fill a heart. Only connection does. And when they realize the new person doesn't bring the same depth, the same ease, the same emotional security that you brought, that emptiness hits them with full force. They look around at what they replaced you with, and suddenly everything feels small. Everything feels shallow. Everything feels unworthy compared to the level of connection they abandoned. This is when your uniqueness becomes painfully obvious to them, the things they dismissed, the things they ignored, the things they assumed they could find again, the way you understood them when they didn't even have the words, the way you calmed their storms without trying, the way they felt known in your presence, the way they felt safe, the way they could be imperfect and still feel accepted. New people can offer new faces, new bodies, new conversations. But depth isn't replaceable. Someone like you is not a person they stumble into twice. And here's the truth they'll try to hide from themselves. This collapse is unavoidable. It's baked into the psychology of human attachment. The brain always returns to the connection that felt the deepest. Always. It doesn't matter how many people they meet. It doesn't matter how many distractions they chase. It doesn't matter how loudly they pretend to be over you. The brain isn't loyal to pride. It's loyal to emotional imprints. And you left an imprint they can't erase just because they want to. Contrast. Collapse is the moment their mind finally stops lying. This is when the comparisons start slicing through their illusions. They talk to someone new and feel nothing. They laugh and it doesn't hit the same. They look into someone's eyes and realize there's no familiarity, no warmth, no spark that feels like home. Just an empty attempt to recreate something they already had. And the more they compare, the more the truth corners them. You weren't just someone they dated. You were their emotional baseline. You were the reference point for real connection. And when the mind realizes the new people can't measure up, everything collapses. The fantasy breaks, the pride cracks, the denial crumbles. And there it is, the moment they finally understand what they threw away. So remember this, my friends, you were not competing with new people. You were competing with their delusion, and the delusion always collapses. Always, because no matter how far they go, no matter who they meet, no matter what they distract themselves with, the brain returns to the deepest connection it ever held, and for them, that connection was you. Write this in the comments to lock it into your identity. I was incomparable from the start. Number 8. Why the story always reopens. The return pattern. My friends, this final piece ties everything together. There's a reason the story never fully ends, a reason their energy keeps circling back, a reason their absence never feels final. I call this return pattern theory. It's the psychological truth that emotional cycles don't end randomly. They end exactly where the strongest attachment was formed. Not with the newest distraction, not with the safest choice, not with the loudest option, but with the connection that left the deepest emotional imprint. That's why around 80% of people return. Not because they're bored, but because their emotional cycle brings them right back to the origin of their strongest feelings. You. The first trigger is emotional exhaustion. They run, they distract themselves, they chase temporary highs, but eventually they burn out, and when they're tired, they return to the last place that felt calm and familiar. Then comes internal comparison. No matter how hard they deny it, every new person gets measured against you. The conversations, the chemistry, the comfort, the depth, nothing matches the blueprint you left. Comparison kills illusions faster than time ever could. And the final trigger is the unfinished attachment loop. Humans hate emotional loose ends, and your story with them never got a clean ending. That unfinished bond pulls them back, mentally and emotionally, until returning feels inevitable. But here's the part that always shocks people. They come back the moment you stop waiting. When your energy shifts, when your heart starts healing, when you release the tension, the pull on their end intensifies. Your detachment activates their clarity. My friends, as we wrap this up, take a moment to breathe in everything we uncovered today. You saw the patterns, the psychology, the truth behind their distance, and the power sitting quietly in your hands. The story isn't ending. You're just stepping into the part where you rise and they recognize what they lost. Hold your head high and stay centered in your worth. If this opened your eyes, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. And drop a comment below to anchor your strength. I'm here with you every step forward.